Hey everybody, today is Tuesday, June 8th, and this is episode 10 of the Bracy Sports Show. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss another show. Please support this podcast by following the link in the description or by clicking support on Anchor. Listen to audio-only versions of the podcast by searching my name, Bracy, on Apple and Spotify. The social question of the day is, after saying your best wide receiver duo in the NFL yesterday, who is the best running back duo in the NFL today or heading into the 2021 season? And number one, I'm going to go ahead and say it's easily Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt, I believe, rushed for about 860 yards, while Nick Chubb ran for another 1,000. And those guys are getting those numbers on minimal touches, splitting the carries throughout the entire season. So definitely Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt for me. Kareem Hunt is more of the receiving back, and it seems to really work. I think they're the best 1-2 punch in the league. At number two, I'll say Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray. They've kind of been a combination for a while in the NFL, and I think I can really appreciate Latavius Murray because it's more of like a 70-30 type of split in that backfield. So, shout out to Latavius Murray. He takes less touches, but he does so much with them. And whenever Kamara is out, he's an easy fill-in. So I'm going to go with them at number two. And at number three is going to be a new duo heading into the 2021 NFL season, and that is Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. I think they're going to be a pretty good tandem as long as they use Kenyon Drake the right way. In Arizona, they didn't really use his receiving ability, but I think that the Raiders are going to really take advantage of that because that's really the only thing that Josh Jacobs lacks in. And I'm not even too sure Josh Jacobs lacks in that. I think they never really gave him a true receiving role or gave him a chance to prove he can catch the ball out of the backfield, but they felt they needed Kenyon Drake, and I think they're going to be a nice combo heading into the 2021 season. And on this day in sports history, June 8th, 2001, Shaquille O'Neal of the Los Angeles Lakers tied the NBA record for most blocked shots in an NBA Finals game when he rejected 8 shots in Game 2 of the NBA Finals in 2001, which was a 98-89 victory over the 76ers. O'Neal tied 8 block performances by Bill Walton, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Patrick Ewing. And he ends up shooting 12 for 19 in that game as well with 9 assists and a steal. He really just stuffed the stat sheet in that one. So a little throwback to Shaq dominating the finals in 2001. Right into the NBA action from last night. The Nets went up 2-0 on the Bucks after winning 125-86 in an absolute blowout. And let me just be the first one to say I was wrong about the Bucks. I thought these guys were going to be able to compete at least a little bit with the Nets, but the Nets are actually playing defense, and the Bucks are also missing wide open shots. So the Brooklyn Nets are really just asserting their dominance all over the Bucks. And in this game, Durant ends up scoring 32 points in 3 quarters, and the Nets led by as much as 49 in their most lopsided playoff victory ever, and held the NBA's highest scoring team in the regular season to 34 points below its season average. Kyrie Irving added 22 points, and Bruce Brown did fill in nicely for Harden with 13 points and 6 rebounds. But Brooklyn just couldn't miss a shot in this game. They shot 52% from the field, and they were 21 for 42 from 3, shooting 50% as well. And Game 3 is Thursday in Milwaukee, where the Bucks did beat the Nets twice in May while Harden was out with his hamstring injury. But it does not look good at all for Milwaukee fans. If Harden comes back this series, I think you can put a nail in him. But Griffin did have the highlight play of the half when he cut baseline to take a pass from Bruce Brown, and he dunked on Giannis a little bit. And I think Blake Griffin really had the Pistons fooled when he had 0 dunks in his last 20 games, and everyone thought he was on the decline. But he is performing for Brooklyn, and I think they're really happy that they did acquire him. But Middleton also missed his first 8 shots again after shooting 0 for 9 in the last game, making him 6 for 31 at that point in the series after his terrible performance in Game 1, like I said. And he missed his first 8 3-point attempts in this series before hitting his last 2 in the first half. But Milwaukee's really going to try and get it together and look to get its first victory in this series on Thursday with a chance to win at home. But that wasn't the only game that went down over last night. The Phoenix Suns also played the Denver Nuggets in game one. And this one was actually really, really exciting. The Nuggets were really in control for most of this game, and the Suns really went on a crazy run. It was a 34-9 run that helped Phoenix take control. DeAndre Ayton finished with 20 points and 10 rebounds, and Booker added 21. Chris Paul did look much, much better out there with his rejuvenated right shoulder, finishing with 21 points and 11 assists, while Mikal Bridges actually led the team in points with 23. So it was a really nice team win for the Suns with contributors from everywhere. And Jokic actually did struggle a little bit in this one. He led the team with 22 points, which is well below his season average. And Aaron Gordon did add 18 points, while Michael Porter Jr. only had 15. If he's going to be that true second option, he's going to have to score more than 15 points. And I expect him to do so as the series continues. The Joker did shoot 10 for 23 from the field. Chris Paul did become just the third player ever, 36 years or older, who had at least 20 points and 10 assists in a playoff game. Another big topic of discussion was the Coach of the Year, and Monty Williams actually did not win that, and I think that's a big mistake. They end up giving it to Tom Thibodeau, and Monty said after the game, he has no sour feelings about it, but I think he really deserved it. No one expected the Suns to soar all the way to the second seed in the West, and I think Monty did deserve Coach of the Year. Tom Thibodeau won it because he brought the Knicks back to relevance, but I think Monty's coaching effort was more impressive. Game 2 is going to be on Wednesday in Phoenix, and we'll see if Phoenix can take a commanding 2-0 lead. So taking a look at the slate that's ahead of us for tonight, we have the Hawks against the 76ers in Game 2. I really do think that the 76ers are going to bounce back in this one and win Game 2 and tie the series at 1-1. I think Trae Young really came in and surprised them with all of their young talent, and the Hawks aren't going to catch them by surprise anymore in this series. So I'm going to take Philly in that one. And then we also have Game 1 against the Jazz and Clippers. And I think this is going to be a pretty good series. The Jazz aren't any bums, and I'm sure they have a chip on their shoulder because no one is expecting them to get out of the West. So we'll see about that series. I'm not expecting the Jazz to get out of the West. So I'm one of those guys, and I think in some small NFL news, there are more injury problems for the San Francisco 49ers. Trent Williams, backup offensive lineman, Justin Schooley tore his ACL on Monday in minicamp, and also Jimmy Ward's backup, Tarvarius Moore, tore his Achilles, leaving him out for the season as well. So two key depth pieces for the 49ers for guys that aren't usually that healthy. Jimmy Ward hasn't been healthy in about 2 years, so losing a depth piece like Tarvarius Moore is just crushing for the 49ers, and hopefully just those starters can stay healthy for the 49ers moving forward. And in some other small news, as expected, Aaron Rodgers has not reported to mandatory minicamp, and I really just don't think he's going to be a Green Bay Packer at this point. So we are continuing my AFC North predictions, and we are on the last team in this division, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. And although I do think that they will improve drastically from last year, I still have them finishing last in this pretty tough division. And just taking a look at the Bengals roster, you've got quarterback Joe Burrow, who I think is going to have a great second year, hopefully with a better offensive line in front of him, but that's not saying much. The Bengals easily had the worst offensive line in football last year. I think it has improved to maybe middle of the pack, but it's going to need to continue to improve for this team to get better. At running back, you have Joe Mixon, who I believe is still a 3-down guy and has been a product of a poor offensive line in the past 2 years. I think he can be extremely productive, especially when they are mixing in the run and the pass. And taking a look at their wide receiver weapons, they just drafted Jamar Chase in the first round, who has a familiar chemistry with Joe Burrow. And you add that to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, who are also some pretty good options in the slot. I think that this Bengals offense is going to take a huge step forward. And their fourth wide receiver actually isn't bad either. Auden Tate, he's a nice fourth option to have at the wide receiver spot, just in case one of these guys go down. And at tight end, you do have CJ Ozama and Drew Sample, some pretty mediocre guys. I would say Ozama is more of the blocker, and Drew Sample is more of the receiving tight end. But most places do project a bottom 10 defense in the league from this Bengals team, and they have no true presence in the front seven. So I think they're really going to struggle to hold teams at all to scoring. So with that being said, let's get right into week one, where they face off against the Minnesota Vikings at home. And I've got them losing this game ultimately because I don't think they're going to be able to stop Minnesota from scoring. I think Dalvin Cook can run for 150 yards, and Minnesota can control the clock. And also, Minnesota's defense is a little bit improved, adding Patrick Peterson. I think they'll be able to get a little bit more stops with Danielle Hunter coming off of injury as well. In week two, we've got them facing off against Chicago in Chicago, and that's always a tough place to play. I think the Bears defense is going to be able to hold this Bengals team to limited points, so I will take the Bears in that one. So starting things off for the Bengals, I've got them going 0-2. But in week three, getting their first W at Pittsburgh, I just think the division games are so tough. You never know how they're going to go, and I think in this week three matchup, they are able to get it done. So getting their first win there, and then they play Jacksonville in week four with a matchup of number one overall picks between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. I do think that Joe Burrow does get the best of Lawrence, and Cincinnati comes out on top in somewhat of a shootout between very, very poor defenses. In week five, they do play Green Bay at home, and I've got them losing that one, assuming Aaron Rodgers is on the roster. And the Green Bay team is just very experienced, and I think they could get after a young offensive line in Cincinnati. So I'll take Green Bay in that one. And in week six against Detroit, Detroit's got to win some games somewhere. So I think that Detroit does beat the Bengals in this one with quarterback Jared Goff making some plays and DeAndre Swift, who's actually an exciting young second-year player. So they've got something on offense and some young pieces on defense. So I think they might be able to best the Bengals in week six. And in week seven, the Bengals travel to Baltimore, where they will play the Ravens for the first time in the season. I do have them losing that matchup because the Ravens just have too much as a team and will absolutely overpower the Bengals in every aspect of the game. But in week 8 is a pretty interesting matchup between the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think the Jets are going to be able to win this one, so I will take the Bengals to win and ultimately just outscore the Jets in that game, where I think a season where Zach Wilson is going to struggle ultimately just because the pieces around him are not the best, and he's gonna need to find some veteran hands, and I think they really need to get Jameson Crowder back in the building. But with that being said, I've got the Bengals winning that Week 8 matchup, and in Week 9 they play the Cleveland Browns, and I actually have them beating the Browns at home, just kind of surprising them. Like I said, I think this offense is much improved. I know Cleveland's defense is going to be pretty good this year, but I'll take the Bengals in a division matchup in Week 9. The Bengals get their bye week in Week 10, and in Week 11 they play at Las Vegas. I do think they ultimately fall in that one to a veteran Raiders team, and in Week 12 they lose again to Pittsburgh. In Week 13 they play the Chargers, who I think is going to be a top 5 team in the AFC, so I've got them losing that one. And after the bye week, I really have the Bengals losing the rest of the way. But that's not just because they're poor as a team. It's just after the bye week, their schedule is brutal. They've got Las Vegas, that's all right. Pittsburgh, not too bad. But then you got the Chargers, the Niners, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and Browns to finish your season. So that's just really brutal. I've got them losing all of those games to finish the year. 4-13 overall. I think the record isn't really going to say how much this team improves. So take a look at the offensive numbers and see how much improved Joe Burrow is in this second season, and I think you'll be able to see that growth from this team, who's just really young and probably 2 to 3 years out from contending in the AFC. But to recap, this is how I see the division shaping out. At number 1, I have the Cleveland Browns finishing 13-4. At number 2, I have the Ravens finishing 12-5. At number 3, the Steelers at 7-10. And at number 4, the Cincinnati Bengals finishing 4-13. That is going to do it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you have yet to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do so by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at RomeloB_sports.